this week in golf, and the Travelers just finished up, and Keegan Bradley ran away with it. He basically gets on fire from the very first hole. He birdies the first 4 holes, never looks back. At one point in time, gets to 26 under par, and stumbled a little bit coming down the wire. Bogeyed, I think, 3 out of the last 5, but still ends up winning it by 3 strokes. His second win of the year. He wins $3.6 million for the Travelers, which was an elevated event. And he also won the Zozo Championship earlier in the year, $1.9 million. That's a pretty good year so far for the wins, 2 wins. He did say in the pros, excuse me, let me back up. Last week, he missed the cut at the U.S. Open. And so he took off. He got to the course early, and he just was feeling out of sorts. But he said something clicked between last week and this week. And one of the things was he was working with his coach. He went back to his coach, his swing coach is a guy named Darren Mahan. And he said that just a few little things that him and Darren worked with, and then he changed the loft on his driver, or the lie angle on his driver. He said it was too upright, so he lowered it a little lower. And one of the things he said in the post-round press conference was that for him, everything starts with his driver swing. So if he's not swinging his driver well, he's not going to be swinging any of his irons well. And looks like he got that fixed right in time. And then the other thing that was interesting is every time he finished putting, he would walk over and his caddy would hold his fingers out, kind of like I am now. And he would set the putter on his fingers and like bow to his putter each time. And that's pretty cool. But one of the things that was happening with his putting is he wasn't feeling too good about his putting. So he went to his coach, which is a guy named Phil Kenyon. And he works with Tommy Fleetwood and a bunch of the other guys as well on tour. And basically the first thing he did was he noticed that his putting stroke was fine, but he had him change his aim point. He noticed that he was over-reading putts and he was aiming high every time. So I don't know what that means. High, maybe a little to the right every time. But anyways, he was it was that little change that made the big difference. And it's interesting because Doug, my partner at Golf BPM, he sent me a link one day to this company called Vizio Putting. And it turns out it's this guy, when I looked up Phil Kenyon today, it's this guy Phil Kenyon's company. And what Vizio is it's a bunch of training aids, but they'll also do one-on-one coaching with you and putting swing analysis, stroke analysis. The reason Doug sent it to me is because they have this item. It's about 24 inches long, and it's just a tube, and it's called the tempo stick. And it actually goes whoop, whoop, and it like measures like where your putt started, and then it gives you an indicator at the backswing, and then an indicator at impact. Very similar to what we do with Golf BPM with the music. It's just a stick. Ours is just music with tones in it, but this is a stick. And it's back ordered, unfortunately. Although maybe they're in, I'll have to check. But they have a bunch of other training aids on their website as well. So anyways, that's who Keegan worked with. And there's a guy out here that Doug knows and a lot of people know around San Diego, and his name is Derek Ueda, who's also a putting coach. And he works with Xander and many of the other pros. I'm not sure which ones, but Xander for sure. And one of the first things I've seen Derek do kind of in the YouTube videos I've watched of him is the very first thing he does with a student is look where they're aiming the putt and like make sure their aim is right. And so that's interesting that this Phil Kenyon does that as well. And that's what changed Keegan. It was just, are you lined up where you're supposed to be lined up at? And so that's a good starting point for you, for me, for anybody else. Are we lined up at the right spot? And then obviously we need to make a stroke, hit it with the center of the putter, have some good fundamentals. But so long as we could read it correctly, that would make a big difference. Okay, so the other thing about Keegan that I noticed in his post-round press conference was he was very gracious to the team and the people that are around him. One is I forgot to mention, he is from that area, and the Travelers is one of the tournaments he went to as a kid, and he's always wanted to win it. So he's from New England, I guess the Boston area. I don't know exactly where, but that's where he's from, and that's kind of the hometown tournament, and that's the tournament he always wanted to win. So at the end, he said it was very nice. The first thing he said was it was very nice to be able to walk up the 18th fairway stress-free and have his wife and his 2 sons there. But the other thing that he mentioned was kind of in the post-round presser was like all the other people. Like he had mentioned when he was a kid, he had gone to that tournament and he followed around David Duval. And this is like prime Dave, when David Duval was at the prime of his career. So that was one. His aunt Pat Bradley, is LPGA Hall of Famer, won 34 tour events and 6 major championships. So he said, my Aunt Pat was my hero growing up. And he talked about the LPGA Tour and how they used to follow the LPGA Tour growing up, and how he used to like to watch Dottie Pepper play. And so he was very gracious in kind of his comeuppance at the win, with the win. And then the other 2 things he mentioned of significance is the Patriots, obviously, being from New England and Boston, and just some of the memories he had of that, and great championship quality and winning. And then he mentioned that he got a text from Michael Jordan, and he's friends with Michael Jordan. And he said that one of the things, or many of the things he's learned about winning and competing have just been through talking to Michael over the years. And so, I don't know, just felt like a nice story of him winning the hometown tournament. And then not only that, but kind of what goes into it from a team perspective, right? Like his father was a former, or is a PGA professional, so coaching pro. Obviously his aunt, Michael Jordan, his 2 coaches, his putting coach and his swing coach. So just kind of nice to see that and hear about that, of like the finer details of what goes into this. And, he's 32 years old. He's already won a major, but it was a long time ago. So he's having a hell of a year. 2 wins on the year. Okay, so this week coming up is the Rocket Mortgage Classic. It's in Detroit. And last year, Finau won the event, Tony Finau. And so it's not an elevated event, so it's not all the big name players there. But I looked over the list. It seemed like there was about, I don't know, maybe 10 of the guys that are in the top 30 are going to be playing this weekend. So Finau has another good chance to win. I mean, let's just put it in perspective. In the last calendar year, he won the 3M. The next weekend, he won the Rocket Mortgage last year. The next week he won the 3M, and then he's won twice already this year. He's won in Texas at the Houston Open and in Mexico at the Mexican Open. So interested to see how the former champion does this week at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And Liv is having an event this week. They are in Valderrama, Spain. So obviously the full field, 54 holes, hitting off in Spain, and we'll see how that goes. And we're just going to finish it off here with one little thing about this year. We're more than halfway through the golf year, so we're rounding towards the end, 3 majors in. But here are the winners, the people who have won more than once this year on the PGA Tour and Live, because I'm going to include those guys because they deserve some props as well. So Jon Rahm has won 4 times. He's the highest. Max Homa has won twice. Keegan Bradley has now won twice. Tony Finau has won twice. Victor Hovland. Scheffler, I think he's won 3 times. Wyndham Clark, obviously last week with the U.S. Open win. He's won twice. And then Brooks Koepka has won once on Live and once on the PGA Tour for the PGA Championship. And finally, Taylor Gooch won 2 weekends in a row in Live. And those are your multiple winners this year on the tour. And that is This Week in Golf. Hey, it's Jeremy Callahan, and thanks for listening to This Week in Golf. Make sure and hit subscribe so you can get all the latest news and analysis from Golf BPM.